Welcome to Talking Junk.
I'm your host, Jason Melendez.
Live now every week on Fridays.
Talking Junk.
A multitude of professionals in different aspects, different walks of life.
You have to come on and talk junk like a normal person.
Welcome to Talking Junk. Today's Friday. Where are you? Hopefully watching us. How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing good. How are you?
Gunna, AJ, doing all right.
Can't complain.
I found out today that I'm gonna have I have a midterm.
A baby?
Today. Like I
What?
pretty much no. I'd be hype about having a baby. That would mean a lot of good things have been going on. But no. Yeah, I got a midterm my birthday. My birthday's gonna suck this year. It's my 30th, so I'm just trying to relegate to that and be like, all right, let's just focus.
Welcome to being a grown-up.
Man, that ain't got nothing to do with being
Well,
a grown-up.
since we're talking about
Not
babies,
always- Well, never mind.
we might as well introduce our guest.
Hmm?
Since we're talking about
Yeah, my
babies, we
baby?
might as well introduce our guest. Yeah, I mean, his babies have helped produce many stand-up comedians' careers. So, without further ado, my man R. Scott Edwards.
Hey,
How are you today,
so-
Scott?
Oh, sorry. I was doing a little bourbon.
Hey, that's how you start
sorry.
out, right?
Hey, I
What
just
else
wanted
do we
to
got?
work with you folks.
We got a few drinks here.
There
Some
you
drinks
go.
Here for you. What's your preference? I mean, that
I'm
usually
a
don't
bourbon
happen till
drinker,
tomorrow
and,
night, but
ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited to being on the Talking Junk show. By the way, I have a podcast, stand-up comedy host and MC, and I'm Scott Edwards.
Hey, there we go. Look at that. You got his
That's
own
enough of that.
audience. That's what I'm
Okay.
talking about, man.
You need to step up our
got a little bit
game.
of whiskey for you.
Right?
There you go. A little crown. Woo.
Little Crown Peach,
Yeah,
I got
Crown.
some for you. Although I must admit, I
fine. was
drinking some watermelon Ciroc in my Sunkist here, but
Oh, nothing wrong with that.
I was peer pressured into trying a Ford Loco yesterday.
Yeah, how was that?
I'm
Why?
sorry you had to go through that.
I mean, it was peer
I
pressure.
bet
but
that was
like,
his
it's
exact
only-
face.
It was Dre was one of them. If anybody's wondering, Dre was one of those people that forced me to get a Blue Raz Ford Loco. Scott, he's one of our co-parts on the break room. A longtime friend of mine, and he's like, "Man, you're almost turning 30. You guys gotta try it. Da da da. It's
Time out.
garbage, but this is
Did
the
you just
best
say-
one, and you gotta try it." It's like, oh, it's disgusting.
Sounds like he's the kind of friend that
Did
you
you
really
just say
need.
Dre peer pressured you?
Yes, he was one of two people. Thank you.
That was
Thank you.
great.
Exactly. Yeah, Dre was one of two people. I'm disappointed in both of them.
I'm disappointed in you.
You really let them
I
peer
mean-
pressure you into trying a nasty ass Four Locos?
Into that out of
Again,
everything.
it was my
like,
boys. I've known them both for over a decade. Like we went to high
so you
school
trusted
together.
their
Like,
judgment.
Yeah, trust
I'm
me.
gonna have
they
to
were
have
being
that talk with
completely
Dre.
honest. That's what it was. They were saying like it's garbage. Like it's some of the worst stuff ever. But to never have had one, like, are you a loser? And it's just like you guys are not. You're not gonna let it go. So it's like,
Anybody-
I'm looking forward.
I'm going to age myself, but if you guys ever get that desperate, you got to try Thunderbird out of a paper bag. That'll put
Ooh.
hair on your balls, I'll tell you.
I think I've heard of Thunderbird. I'm not sure if I've seen it, but you know what? If I see it, I'm going to give you Scott, and I'm going to be like, Scott said this might put hair on my balls. I'm going to see what happens.
Have you guys ever had Cisco?
Yes. China, I'm
Oh.
sorry. It puts hair somewhere different for you.
That's all right. You could say on my balls.
Her balls are rubber.
It's way more awkward for Jenna.
This is getting off to a great start. I bet your audience is riveted.
Oh,
Probably
well,
not.
that's why they always come back. Sunshine, Donna, they always here.
Well, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, Scott?
Oh, well, the reason I've been invited on this amazing Talking Junk show is because of my history. I owned a chain of comedy clubs for over 20 years, and this goes back a few decades, but in the 80s and 90s, I helped launch some terrific careers and worked with people like Jane Leno, Seinfeld, Dana Carvey, and I was on the show today to share some of those stories. It should be fun.
Well, how'd you get into the
So-
business?
You were gonna say, Colin?
I was gonna
It's actually
just
with a
let you
T.
know
I'm
it's-
sorry.
Yes, Tallinn. But I was actually going to say, what coast were you? Did you have these on? I'm presuming the East Coast because of Seinfeld and those who you Jay Leno. I know they're from New York, so it must have been East Coast clubs, correct?
Yeah, one of the pictures I sent you was the entrance of my club in the heyday. It was called Laughs Unlimited. We used to have lines around the block. And this is in beautiful downtown Sacramento, California, in a tourist area called Old Sac. Now we're back to ballsy.
That's crazy. I might have family that's been there because a lot of my dad's side live in Sacramento.
They lived in Old Sac?
I don't think anybody really lives in Old Sac, but we were there for, I was there for 21 years. The club is actually still there.
Oh, wow.
But just to give you an idea, in 1980, August of 1980, my very first opening act making $150 a week was Gary Shandling.
I know that name.
Gary Shandling had his the Larry Sanders Show. He had the Gary Sanders Shandling Show. He was on every show you could think of in several movies. And sadly, he passed away a couple years ago, but he was one of the funniest guys in America for a long time. The headliner was a guy who had his own theater in Las Vegas for over 12 years, George Wallace. But that was my very first show. So that was back in the very beginnings. I was the baby then.
I wasn't even a baby then. I was still swimming somewhere in an Old Sac.
Wait a minute.
Nice. That was good.
All right, that was a good one.
It was about 7 years too early for me.
Well, I was a youngster, 24 years old. It was the third company I had opened. My first one, I was 17. And it was really exciting. The quick backstory is I was selling life insurance and hated it. And I was on on a vacation with a then girlfriend, soon to be wife, soon to be ex-wife, in Los Angeles. And there was a little satellite comedy store room in Westwood. And I went there as a tourist and saw Dave Coulier and Sandra Bernhardt and a few other people on stage. And I talked to the comics after the show and I said, man, they need this in Sacramento. Came up to town, quit my job, went bankrupt, and finagled my way into a room and went to town. And as they say, the rest is history.
Just for you absent-minded people out there who don't know who Coulier is, he's Mr. Cut It Out.
Yeah, he was on Full House, Fuller House, and a good friend. He was actually at my bachelor party naked. Don't get that out. Don't let it get that.
Did somebody say wood?
Well, actually, since it was pretty much all men at the time, there was no wood. But it was pretty shocking for all my friends to have this TV celebrity come walking out of the room with his pants around his ankles. Very entertaining. But yeah, Dave Coulier, in fact, he was doing a movie with Cheech and Chong, and he invited me on set. And I think you got a picture from that. And I got a chance to go on set on one of the early Cheech and Chong movies. And Dave Coulier and I had a little side fun when the camera was off. No, that's Dave on the right, but go one more picture or two. Let's see. It'd be the last one, I guess. Sorry. There you go. That's Dave Coulier. And I'm copping a feel backstage. He was playing dressed up as a gal for as a transgender person for a Cheech and Chong movie, and he invited me on set, and we had a little fun when the cameras weren't rolling.
Well, hey, we don't kiss and tell on this podcast, so
well,
we don't want to know what you guys did when the cameras wasn't rolling.
Yeah, right. One of the many experiences. There's another great story that I get to share. It actually comes from 1980, and Dave Coulier and Bob Saget were both working for me. Saget closing, Coulier was the feature act at that point. Still, this is way before Full House, before America's Funniest Videos, all the shows they did. But the three of us were having cocktails after the show, and I'm sitting between Dave and Bob, and I could see they're passing notes under the table and then cracking up. And I was like, I felt like a third wheel here. And I go, hey, what the hell's going on? Get me in on the joke. And Saget pulls up this folded up piece of paper, and inside, he unfolded the paper. There was like some lint from under the table. And David said, here's some of my pubic hair. I want you to have this. And that was the kind of stuff that would crack them up. They were very good friends.
It just sounds like
was Bob Saget always really like vulgar back then, or was that like post Full House? Because when I found out that the way that he was in his stand-up, seeing him on Full House, I was kind of shocked. But like, was he always like that in the background? Like when he was in comedy?
He was always filthy. But in a positive way, he did a lot of people don't know he's quite a guitarist and singer. And he used to do a lot of what would they call nasty limericks to popular songs as part of his act back in those days.
So he was the first Weird Al Yankovic.
There you go. Exactly.
Okay.
And later on, when Full House was running and he would come back to the club, we'd always have to tell the audience. I mean, you can't believe how many moms wanted to bring their kids in to see the show because the star of Full House was there. And I'm going, no kids. This isn't the Bob Saget you see on TV.
Right, this is the real fucking Bob Saget.
Yeah, no, it
definitely not the Bob Saget you see on TV.
Exactly.
Need a couple drinks to handle that.
But a great guy. I mean, one of the nicest guys you ever meet. Very funny and original. And his character was so. Have any of you heard of The Aristocrats?
Yes.
The joke. They actually did a short movie on it. He actually.
Well, actually, no.
Dirtiest version
I
of The Aristocrats.
I don't know the joke either.
Joke. I know of the movie.
Well, the movie's all about the joke, guys.
But do you care to enlighten?
I'll give you the short version. The short version is this guy goes into a movie producer and says, I got to do this. I want to do this movie. And what's going to happen is I'm going to come up on stage, and then I'm bringing my wife up on stage, and we're going to start doing some juggling. And then if we don't get the audience, I'm going to drop my drawers, and I'm going to shit right there on the stage. And the producer's like this, and he goes, and then my wife's gonna top that off because she's gonna shove me out of the way, and she's gonna shit right on top of my shit right on top of the stage, right in front of all the customers. And you know what? If they don't like that, we're gonna pick that shit up and throw it at the audience. And the producer goes, oh, that's crazy. What's the name of the show? Oh, The Aristocrats.
Now I have to go back and recontextualize the whole.
Yeah, now I got to tell you, that was my short attempt to tell the story. But when you see the movie, there's like 30 different professional entertainers that tell it 30 different ways.
Wow.
The punchline is The Aristocrats.
Okay. That's great. So you started in the.
You did say you wanted this as a clean show, right?
What's I don't know that word.
We definitely don't know. We know that word a little.
You must
bit
not have heard
talking
the break,
junk, but the break room. We don't give a fuck.
We keep it a little
cordial.
No, Break Room is your other show. I'm happy to be on Talking Junk, but I got to tell you, I was a little disappointed I wasn't on Break Room. But I got to tell you, the T-shirts that you guys sell for Talking Junk are the best, and everybody out there should have one.
Thank you.
They definitely
thank
should.
You. We appreciate that.
We got a couple of them out there.
What's that?
We got a couple of them out there, like the one that we're wearing right now.
Yeah.
We got a couple of Break Room shirts. We also got one. I don't know if you know this, Scott, but we were plagiarized a little bit. We got something stolen from us. A rapper by the name of Soulja Boy kind of stole our former beat. So we have a shirt that says Soulja No Swiping. And he's in the likeness of Swiper the Fox from Dora the Explorer.
Oh, so that's funny. Well,
Yeah,
your T-shirts are a hot commodity, and all your listeners should have one.
They definitely
I
should.
agree. I
To
agree.
get yours,
Listen to
send
this
us a
man. He
message.
knows. He knows hot commodities. He helped cement legends.
Hey, speaking of legends, you want to hear something very few people know?
Absolutely.
Back in the early 80s, long before he was Mr. Famous, Mr. Wonderful, I had on my stage as an opening act for 1 week, Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks was a stand-up comedian?
Well, no, he was actually in his first TV role as an actor on a show called Bosom Buddies. And
I
in
remember
that,
that show.
one of the shows, he had to do some stand-up comedy. He's from the Sacramento area. He graduated from Sac State, and he came into my club with
I want to know how he graduated from Sac State.
He was a
and
little
he came
ballsy
in
to
with
go
his friend
there.
Bob Saget and work for a week so he could get into the role.
Sunshine, I think you have
That's
a little
crazy.
bit more than 2
I had
T-shirts.
no idea. That's pretty good. Like, that says a lot about his acting at an earlier point, though, that he was dedicated enough, or at least they were wanting to make it authentic enough to actually have him going on stage. Was he any good?
Right. It was interesting because it was only one episode of this Bosom Buddies TV show, which lasted 2 or 3 years. And the material we helped him with, and I was directing him, and Bob Saget was helping write. When we saw it on the show, it made you feel good that the work paid off. But a lot of people don't think of Tom Hanks as a comic.
No, that surprised me.
Yeah, I thought you would find that interesting. A lot of people don't know that.
Very
I would have
interesting.
never.
Absolutely. That's really cool.
Was
That's
Wilson
a
in
deep
attendance?
cut fact.
Was Wilson in attendance? I have to know.
Wilson?
Yes, 'cause I know Wilson is
You took me a second.
childhood.
No, Wilson wasn't there. This is probably 20 years before Wilson was even made. But yeah, that's funny. You got me there for a second.
So, who was the first person that you came across that when you met them, you're like, this person's definitely going somewhere? Like, that you recognized that they were going to be shining, even if they didn't know it yet, and you knew like you were in the beginning portion of that career.
Well, I was lucky to work with some really good people that were already, getting somewhere. Jay Leno, Jerry Seinfeld. But I think the most exciting was that a good 3 years before Saturday Night Live, I had as a regular act Dana Carvey. In fact, you remember the song "Choppin' Broccoli"? Are you guys too young for that?
I'm a little too young for that.
Okay, it was on Saturday Night Live, pretty famous. But he and his brother's band came up with some backup singers and actually worked my club for a week. And he was doing that song 2 years before Saturday Night Live. But the real story, if you know who Dana Carvey is, right?
Am I not too enough for the
I won't lie. Yeah, exactly. He was introduced to, I think, my generation mostly through Master of Disguise.
Not Wayne's World.
I was definitely not.
Wayne's World's more China's
generation. But I have seen it.
Well, here's the fun part.
Party time.
Right.
Yeah.
No, the great part about that story was that he was working for me, and one night after the show, we were all hanging out in the jacuzzi, drinking and talking about the week's shows. And Dana goes, "Man, I just got off the phone with Lorne Michaels. They want me to fly to New York." And that's when he found out he got Saturday Night Live. And it was really interesting to see that moment, because he was both excited and scared, because he was a San Francisco-based comic and he was being asked to join one of their premier TV shows for stand-up comedy in history. And he got his shot on Saturday Night Live.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was
cool.
Pretty exciting.
So what other big names have you had across your paths? Any
Well, you have one of the pictures. You guys, he's a little quirky, little different, but Emo Phillips was played in my club several times. He comes from the other edge of comedy, a little strange. See if you can find that picture. He's somebody you might recognize. He that's him right there. Emo Phillips had that Prince. What's it called? A Prince cut or something? Prince Valiant cut. And he was just strangest bird you ever.
Yeah, he looks weird as fuck.
But he ended up being a huge star, did a lot of TV, and Emo Phillips was a unique guy.
That's a really good name for him, Emo Phillips, because he looks emo as shit.
Well, he was a unique guy, but he brought in a more strange audience, but he always brought the show, and they loved him. But it wasn't your normal, setup punchline stand up. It was more esoteric.
I'm gonna have to YouTube Mr. Emo Phillips. He looks familiar, like I've seen him in a movie like UHF or something. Like as a
you ever had like what about Pryor Mooney or Carlin? Anybody like that?
Yeah, Paul Mooney worked for me quite a bit. Pryor was already a pretty huge star by the 80s, and I think some of the names that you would definitely recognize, even though you're not quite the right generation, but I was able to have Tommy Chong at my club twice.
Okay.
Of Cheech and Chong fame. He was interesting. Any of you Monty Python fans?
Yes, I'm a Monty Python fan myself.
So Graham Chapman worked for me, and that was an honor for me because they were my heroes in comedy.
That's awesome.
Monty Python was one of those just so funny British groups that to have them come through. It's like the Beatles of comedy. They're from England. Yeah. There was a group of them, and to get one of the leaders, Graham Chapman was the leader of the group, in on my stage and work with him was just such an honor and so much fun. But there's a lot that you wouldn't mean much to you and probably your audience, but Soupy Sales, Pat Paulson.
we do have a lot of seasoned audience members. So
well seasoned. Well, then they're right up my alley.
That's a good call. That's a good choice of words.
Here. We've done myofacial therapy in the past and stuff like that, so we go all over. So don't worry about.
We have a very
for anybody. You let us know what you want to tell us, and we're gonna.
The very eclectic audience.
Yeah.
Well, I was just, if anybody over 50s out there, I actually had Sales throw a pie in my face. And anybody that knows Soupy Sales, he had his own TV show for many years in the 50s. He threw a pie in the face of presidents, Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley, and me, Scott Edwards.
So he was the OG pie thrower. Well, I guess I wouldn't say that because the Three Stooges were doing that way, way back and even before them. But I guess in terms of being famous and on like regular television, he's like the first guy that was really doing this, because to do that to presidents,
he got away with it. And then speaking of presidents, Pat Paulson ran for president several times, and from the Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, he was their go-to comic and used to do a lot of stuff. Quick funny story about Pat Paulson.
Okay.
You've heard of
Luann knows exactly who they are.
All right. And the Smothers Brothers, right? Tommy Smothers, one of the brothers, they were doing a show up in Reno, and I took some gals with me, and we went up to see a show, and Pat Paulson got us backstage. And after the show, we're in the green room with
what were you doing with these gals, Scott?
Well, it was very legitimate.
Intelligent conversations over tea.
Yeah, we won't go into the story where I took 8 young ladies to Vegas and LA in a private jet. But hey, that's another story. So we're backstage in the green room with Pat Paulson, and in comes Tommy and Dick Smothers, and one of the gals I was with was sitting on the couch, and we're all drinking and goofing around, and all of a sudden Tommy sits next to my friend and kind of grabs her shoulders and turns her and lays her down, and he gets right on top of her. And he's, talking about,
Colin has my face.
It was, and this girl that was with me was like my little sister. So it was a little odd because they're famous people and I'm their guest, and he's like trying to dry hump my sister. And
well, that's rule number one, Scott. That's rule number one. You don't bring your little sister to a party with a guy with a porno name like Dick Smothers.
Well, I really blew it, and I looked at Pat Paulson for help because he was a good friend of mine, and Pat just goes, "Tommy's got a boner. Tommy's got a boner." We had to eventually pull Tommy off, and the young lady survived the event, but it was one of those awkward. I don't know if you've been around many celebrities, but you know, you want to treat them like normal people, but it can be challenging in the right situation.
I bet it was real challenging at times dealing with so many personalities.
It was a real honor to be backstage with him, but at the same time, here's one of your heroes, and he's jumping on your sister.
That's definitely an awkward situation. Hey, bro, it was, could you not hump my sister?
Yeah, right. What do you say?
Like, do I get ballsy and pull him off of her? Or do I tell her to just take one for the team?
Well, that was what was difficult. My first instinct was to pull him off, but you know, I don't want. Anyway, it's now a funny story, but at the time it was very awkward.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Imagine how she feels. She's about to get smothered by some dick.
Wait a minute.
It was the smothering. So, having a club up in Sacramento, that being the capital, even though people can kind of think of LA as the central spot of California, did you ever have any relationships or rivalry with the Comedy Store?
No, not the store. I was good friends with the owner down there, and then the Improv. I was a regular at those. I would use those clubs as showcase rooms. So I would call them up and say, "Hey, I'm coming down." Bud Friedman at the Improv. "Hey, Bud, I'm going to come down. I'm looking for some new talent," and he'd set up a showcase for me. So we did that a lot. Not competition. The closest competition was, you guys again may not know the name, but Bill Graham was one of the biggest promoters in Northern California. He managed the Eagles and Hendrix and a bunch of people, and did Day on the Green, which is a big chain of concerts, a big promoter. And he opened a comedy club called The Punchline. And I once met Bill Graham after one of his concerts backstage. And I was like, you know, he's like one of my heroes when it comes to concert promoters. I'd done a few small concerts. He was like the king. And all he could say is, "Don't you own that comedy club in Sacramento? You know, I don't really like that. That's my territory." Like, he's in San Francisco. I'm in Sacramento, and that's his territory. And he was giving me crap. So anyway, never meet your heroes, right? That's what they say.
How many clubs did you own?
I opened it, ended up with 3 clubs, 2 restaurants, and 2 art galleries. I was taking over a small part of the world.
Sounds
Do you
good.
still own clubs, or?
No. I after 21 years of working, 6-7 nights a week and stuff, an opportunity came along to sell the chain, and I did. And I kind of semi-retired when I was 44 and sold the clubs. But I stayed in the business in the sense that I still book 4 to 6 concerts, mostly fundraisers for charities in Northern California, and still work with the comics, which was one of the reasons this podcast, Stand-Up Comedy, your host and MC, is so great, because it allows me to stay connected to the industry. Not only am I able to share live stand-up comedy sets from the 80s and the 90s and on, but every other show I interview these comics. In fact, just last week, very funny guy, Will Schreiner, who had his own show, The Will Schreiner Show, and has been in a lot of movies, was able to interview him. Recently interviewed Yakov Smirnoff, famous Russian comic, favorite of Ronald Reagan's. And so the podcast has helped me stay vibrant in the industry that I really love.
That's awesome.
That's great. When did you did you produce some TV? I believe I seen somewhere.
Yeah, I've had 2 TV series and 1 TV special. I did a special for the Fox network. which was interesting because it aired the same night as a special called An Early Frost, which was about death and mayhem due to nuclear mayhem. So a lot of people watch that instead of my show. But I had 1 hour special with Fox, and then I did a series for NBC and another one for the CBS affiliate in Northern California. And a lot of the material that is on the podcast and soon to be released on my membership-only archive videos of a lot of these entertainers we're talking about live on stage.
Wow.
That's
busy man.
Sounds like a good get.
I mean, to be honest, I've been blessed that I got to work with these guys. Yeah, I got to work with these guys back in the 80s and 90s, and now is how did you put it? Seasoned young man. I share. I own all this material, right? Because I paid him to do TV and stuff and concerts back then. So I own the material, so I'm able to re-establish it and share it through the podcast and through these this video archive. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Sounds like fun.
Awesome.
Definitely.
So
yeah, who are some of the comics that you guys really like?
I grew up in the Bronx, so I grew up around a lot more like Martin Lawrence, Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock.
Eddie Murphy, by the way, is my neighbor.
Wow.
Really? He owns a house on the lake about 400 yards from me.
Oh,
but
wow.
we don't. It's not like we're neighbors. We don't see each other. But he bought a house over here on the private lake and has the house next door for his security staff. So he's doing okay.
Damn.
Wow.
Well,
that's a flex.
Sure, we'll come over.
You got to bring it to my security house first.
For a barbecue, Scott.
Yeah, I keep hoping I'll run into him over at the Kmart, but it hasn't happened.
I'm pretty sure the Kmart shop's for him.
Yeah, right. So those are all good people. The people that I've got a chance to work with out of New York was, of course, Seinfeld. One of the best guys ever. You wouldn't know his name, sadly, but I think one of the funniest guys is Larry Miller. And by the way, Jerry Seinfeld, Larry Miller, and Mark Schiff had a club called The Funniest Men in the Universe, and they're all out of New York, and they all came up the ranks together through Catch a Rising Star and the other clubs, the Improv in New York. And Mark Schiff and Larry Miller and Jerry all worked for me back in the day, but Mark Schiff and Larry and I still talk. In fact, Schiff is one of the interviews on my show. So there's a lot of New York flavor in the shows I do.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Did you ever work with or meet people like David Tell or anything? Or
no, some of those guys that were already got big before they got to LA, or you have to think of a comedy club like Laughs Unlimited, which is an A room. It's called an A room. Is like going to college or university right before Stardom, right? So I worked with these guys when they were just starting to get showcased, just starting to get TV spots on Carson and Letterman. And then boom, when they hit, they didn't have any need for my club. I mean, I will say Jerry Seinfeld had to cancel a week at my club when his first show started, the Seinfeld Chronicles. And after the first season, he owed me a date. He actually came back and worked a full week for me, which was really an upstanding thing to do. But because he didn't, I wasn't paying him crap compared to what he was making on TV. But he felt an obligation and came and worked. So it has happened, but it's rare. Usually once they reach that level, it's like once you get into college, you don't really think of your high school and junior high that much anymore, right? There's no reason to look backward. You want to look forward.
Okay. I was just kind of curious because having listened to like Joe Rogan's podcast, he has kind of like his friends on there, like Bert Kreischer and Bill Burr and Tom Segura that come through, or Joey Diaz. And some of them have actually begun to blow up, but a lot of them have just been at it for years and they've never really hit stardom. But they're well known in comics. So I wasn't sure because like that's kind of David Tell. He's well known if you know comedy, but nowadays, if you don't know like I can't remember the name of the show, but he had his show back in the late 90s and early 2000s where like it was the David Tell show, I think, or something like that. He was that guy.
Well, Tallon, two things. First off, you hit the nail on the head because there's really a lot of funny people, and I'm able to share them through my podcast that you've never heard of, but they're really funny people, and they made a 30-40 year career out of entertaining on colleges and on concerts and on cruise ships and a lot of TV, but they just never got that name celebrity like Seinfeld and Leno or somebody. So there's a lot of people, and I get a chance to share that with the podcast, that are just really funny. Steve Bruner, Tim Bedore, Baby Man Bruce Baum. I mean, I could throw out a lot. There's been so many. Tom McTeague, who was, you know, been on his own TV show and still not a famous name, but a really funny guy. But the other thing, Joe Rogan is a funny guy and he's got a lot of funny friends, but who the hell has 3 hours to listen to a podcast?
I tell you, it usually takes a while.
Man, he has long
it usually
shows.
takes a while.
We're in the break room for 2 hours, so
that's
we try and talk until we run out of gas.
Yeah, you don't want to hear this.
Yeah, no.
Well, I'm pretty sure nobody hears that. There's a lot of arguing and cussing and a lot of rambling going on in the break room.
You keep it lively and vibrant.
Oh yeah, to say the least.
It's entertaining. And
China, how do you hold up against these two guys?
She doesn't.
Oh, it's not just what? I can hold my own.
We let her. We don't gang up on her none. But if we did, then Jasmine would pop out and smack Jason. So we got to be careful.
No, sir. I do not talk smack. I talk junk.
But China, I've heard you on the shows. You hold your own. Good for you.
I try.
Well, it's not easy when you got two funny guys that have an opinion to share and not afraid to do it.
Oh, it's four of them on that show.
Oh, 4 on Break Room. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I've only been listening to Talking Junk. I gotta catch up.
Plus, my lovely wife is on there also.
I was just going to say, lately I've been blessed with the company of Jasmine, so that's not fair. 2 of us.
That's totally fair.
Yeah, that's my wife's name.
The way you guys talk, you should be able to handle 2 per, 3 per.
Right?
Well, good for Jasmine and good for you, and sorry for the marriage. But anyway, I'm
There's a lot of people out there that are sorry for the marriage. They're sorry.
They're
sorry they can't get in between.
Have you ever worked with Robin Williams?
Robin, I a couple things about Robin. Yes, I get a chance to work with him a couple times. We saw him several times on stage. A lot of people don't know. Robin got his start in a little-known room called the Holy City Zoo in San Francisco. The room only held 23 people. The stage was maybe 5 feet in size, and there was even a balcony that only held 3 people. One of the smallest clubs in the history of professional comedy. But the Holy City Zoo was where people like Dana Carvey and Robin Williams got their start. And Robin had such a love for show business. He was way too big a star. I mean, Mork and Mindy was already in the works when my club opened up. He was always too big a star to come in as a paid act. However, he loved stand-up so much that twice in the history of my club, he did a concert within a 60-mile radius of my room, and he would show up unannounced, and we would just give him the stage. And after doing a 2-hour concert somewhere, he would come in and do an hour for my audience for absolutely free. The audience never knew that he was going to be there. I didn't know he was going to be there. And it was such a thrill to work with him because then after the show, we'd get a chance to hang out and talk. And he was amazing. It was very sad when he passed away. The local TV show actually interviewed me about Robin because I was one of the local connections, but an amazing entertainer. And even though he was a tremendous actor, I still feel his roots came from stand-up comedy. And just to be a small part of that was amazing.
Yeah, he was a
Somebody's
great
asking,
guy.
Luann's asking about Jim Carrey. No, I didn't get a chance to work for Jim. He did do stand-up comedy in LA before he became a super duper movie star, but I have not had a chance to work with him.
Well, let's not forget A Living Color. He was on A Living Color before he was a super duper movie star.
Right, and he was not ever a straight. I mean, he did some straight stand-up comedy, but he was more of a skit actor and did a lot of theater work. But yeah, it's been a fun life to lead and a great career.
It sounds very interesting. Do you ever get the itch?
Oh, I'm. It's funny you mentioned that because my wife joked when we sold the club that she'd set up a little stage in the corner just so I could appease myself. No,
So
I
are there
still MC. You know, like I said, I do 4 to 6 concerts a year, and I MC all my own shows. In fact, it was funny. One of the comics pointed out last week during the interview that I had a lot of celebrities and a lot of people. I had shows 6 or 7 nights a week for 21 years, and I emceed all those shows. Somebody pointed out I probably had more stage time than any single comic.
See, you got a lot of experience.
Right.
Well, I'm not shy.
And you shouldn't be. You've had a luxurious career, my friend.
It's been a whole lot of fun, and it's great to be able to share that as I become the seasoned pro.
Exactly. Can you think of or give us probably the best story you can think of, the most unlikely situation that happened or something like that? Just whenever you reminisce, that's the one that pops up immediately. It's like, oh man.
It usually takes you something to take you down a path of a story, but I think one of the more unique things, and if we can just get everybody to recognize that Gary Shandling was one of the funniest guys in America and had lots of television, very famous. But Gary was working my club in 1981, and it was an off night, like a Wednesday night. We had maybe 40 people in the audience, and maybe less, maybe it was 30. And somebody in the audience got up and go to the restroom. And Gary just stood there and he goes, well, you know, there goes a tenth of the audience. All right, let's go. And he took the whole audience into the men's room, women and everything. And this guy's trying to do his business. And Gary's standing behind him doing jokes. And the all audience is standing around in this big bathroom applauding and cheering.
See, that was a question I want. That was a question I wanted to ask you. Do you think, because we did an episode in the break room, I believe it was last week, about cancel culture. Do you think the state of the world right now is too sensitive for comedy to really thrive the way it was?
Well, that's a really, really, wait a minute. Really good question. Yeah, the difficulties with the woke environment and everybody's so sensitive. Stand-up comedy is kind of the last bastion for freedom of speech. And what the comics are running into is that back in the day when I was owning clubs, if somebody got pissed off, you know, you go, hey, you know, here's your money back. See you later. You know, this, you know, if you were coming to a stand-up comedy show, you have to be understand that you're going to hear things that may offend somebody. Everything offends somebody, right? But this is a good question. In fact, I've just started a clubhouse room on Tuesday nights called Tuesday Open Mic. And the whole point of the clubhouse room is to get comics and bookers and managers and fans together. And one of the topics is the difficulty in entertaining 100 or 200 people in a comedy club when at any point somebody is going to find something offensive. Mm-hmm. And the point of that sword has gotten so small that it's really difficult. I kind of feel bad for the entertainers of today because, you know, back in the day, you know, you had people like Bobcat Goldthwait and others that Jeff Wayne was another one. total sexist. I mean, funnier than shit, but they could go after people and stuff. There was another guy, and again, one of the funniest you probably never heard of, but look him up, Bobby Slayton, called the Bulldog of Comedy. Has played Vegas, TV, all over, but he goes after everybody. And what makes it great is by the end of the show, he's picked on every race, every sex, every you name it. He doesn't hold back, and it's all funny. But he would struggle more now than he did back in the 80s and 90s because, I don't know what would happen. Maybe, Jason, you tell me, but I'm fearful that you get up somebody that wants to do some real original comedy and half the room gets up and walks out. Oh my God, I can't take it.
They'll have the internet cancel him before his career happens.
I feel like it really depends on, like, when you look at something like South Park, they've been doing that since their inception, but they've been punching in all directions since they've been there. So there really hasn't been a movement to try and cancel them.
Yeah,
a lot of the people, at least
they're trying to cancel Homer Simpson for strangling his cartoon son. So,
and that's reaching, and so is reaching when it comes to comedy, because comedy is supposed to be an open forum of expression and your attempt to tell a joke. And the risk that you take is that joke is not funny. It's actually just offensive, and people don't like it. And the risk that you take, being a part of the audience, is that it is funny. You don't like it, and it's offensive to you. That's a possibility.
Just get up and walk out.
Comedy, you can't come into comedy expecting to be offended. You got to come in to understand that people are going to take their hits. We're here to make fun of each other, here to make jokes, here to laugh. Nothing is malicious. It's not with negative intent to make you feel some type of way. And when you step up and you say, hey, I feel some type of way, this makes me think this or feel this way, why is it suddenly about you? This is not about you. Nobody's calling
everybody
takes you. If anything, we're trying to involve you in the group of comedy, because if you can't be laughed at and laugh with each other, you're automatically ostracizing yourself from society.
Well, I guess that's why we're here, though.
That's exactly why we're here. We're talking junk, damn it. That's why we're doing it.
Exactly. We're here to say, fuck your sensitive asses.
Well, I think it's a pendulum in society, and I think it's going to swing back. I'm hoping. But a funny story.
Hopefully not too hard.
Yeah, I was emceeing one night, and there was a group of like 12 different black guys, and they were celebrating a guy's bachelor party, and they were getting a little drunk, and there was one white guy in the group, and I'm joking with him because I'm trying to calm him down. So I give him a little attention and then tell him to shut the fuck up, right? So I'm talking to him, and I go, and the one white guy yells out, and I go, what are you even doing here? How do you fit into this family, right? You're obviously not part of the family. And he's like, what? That's racist, And I'm like, come on, you got 12 black guys.
The only white guy in the group telling the white guy that's not in the group that he's not in the group, and that's racist.
Right. And of course, his friends were like laughing because he was making such an ass of himself. But it was so funny how the role was reversed, and he still found it, find a way to get offended. It was hilarious.
Part of my bachelorette party, we went to a comedy club.
Oh, we used to love bachelorette parties. Did you have fun?
I went with my future wife, who's my wife now, and of course, we were sitting in the front. I used to tell the girls, turn up the vibrators. Let's go for it. It was a good time. Like, they picked on us, they made jokes, we laughed, and they kept it moving. Like, it wasn't a solid punch like the whole time.
No, and I have seen an entertainer go off on one person way too much. And that's not right either, but it was very rare, maybe twice in 20 years. By the way, Don is asking about, or Colleen wants to know about Gallagher. I have not had a chance to work with Gallagher, but I did get some watermelon seeds in my eye.
Well, before we let you get back to your busy life in retirement, do you have any advice to an up-and-coming comic right now?
Yes, as a matter of fact, and thanks for asking, Jason. You get a little applause. Good timing. I actually am about to launch an online comedy course based on a book I wrote called Be a Stand-Up Comic or Just Look Like One. And there you go. It's mentioned on my website. And it is really difficult to be a stand-up comic, but if you want to learn about it, my book will guide you through that. And if you scroll down a little more, you'll see the book for sale. Digital version's only $10, and it will guide you through what it takes to be a stand-up comic. There it is right there. Stand-up comedy, be one or just look like one, right? You want to hear something funny? Use your mouse and go to the right below the word like. Use your mouse and go right below the word like on that. It look like one. Yeah, see that? That's me. I'm on my own cover. I sat in the audience for the picture. I thought that was silly. Anyway,
I was trying to make it bigger.
No, I'm just messing with you. So, I mean, it was me, but I mean, that's the book. Be a stand-up comic or just look like one. It's a comedy career guide. Go. Oh, you could see. There's the big mustache I told you about. Yeah, and that's not one of my best shots. But the book is a great guide, and the best advice I can give anybody who wants to be a comic, even if you don't want to be a comic, I recommend everybody get on stage. Go to an open mic, get up on stage, bomb, die, kill, whatever happens. It's a great experience and something that will make your life that much more fulfilled.
Well, it's similar to riding a bike and similar to podcasting. You're going to have some good tries. You're going to have some flat tires. You're going to scrape your knee a lot. But as long as you keep it moving, you're going to do just fine.
Great advice, Jason. Podcast, stand-up comedy, even starting a business. Just do it. Don't talk about it.
Be Nike. Be one.
I was just going to say, we can't steal that logo.
Well, Scott, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We want to thank you. We're very honored that you would grace us with your presence. And we hope to have you on a break room show.
I told you, Jason, I was a little nervous being on with three young, hip people like you guys, but it's been a real joy sharing stories and talking junk with you guys.
Well, the pleasure is all ours. Yeah, and, definitely. I wanted to let you know, too, that is a common misconception of ours. Although we do talk a lot of shit, talking junk is called talking junk because we have various different people on through various walks of life. And maybe the shit that I'm talking about today is not for you, but maybe tomorrow will be. Right. It's just junk. One man's junk is another man's treasure.
I heard that on one of your shows, and in fact, you did a nice intro piece, and you mentioned that, and I thought that was very intelligent, and I was shocked, actually.
Well, I can't take credit for that.
You should. Well, that's what artists do.
I got.
Well, it wasn't me.
No swiping.
No swiping.
Yeah. It's been really fun being on, and
Dom Brightman came up with that slogan, so thank you, Dom.
Oh, nice. Well, you guys were a great group, and it's a great podcast. I had a chance to listen to a few shows. You're sharing something with the world that's important, and I too am honored to be on the show. And hopefully, I didn't lay an egg.
Well,
definitely not.
Thank you very much for setting your standards so low. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Guys, you all have a great night. And this was Friday night. See you tomorrow.